Let's talk about Evil Dead Rise. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to do a deep dive on Evil Dead Rise. But before we do that, do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Join me here, great, would appreciate that. And now that I've got to even soak it in even more, I saw it on Friday evening, had my out of the theater reaction, but I've had a few more days to think about it, and we're going to talk about it right now. Evil Dead Rise dropped on Friday, had a budget of $12 million, and I just saw the box office numbers, made a little over 23 for the weekend, so I think it's safe to say we're probably going to see another Evil Dead movie in a few years, which I'm all for that. Now, this movie was written and directed by Lee Cronin. He did a feature film before this called The Hole in the Ground. I've never seen it. I've heard good things about it, but I have not seen it, but I'm going to seek it out now and check it out now because I think you did a really nice job with this film. Alyssa Sutherland plays Ellie, or the mom in this film, or the main deadite as we get through this. Lily Sutherland plays Beth. She is Ellie's estranged sister, and she is a guitar tech for some band, and she's always on the road. And right in the beginning of the film, we see her taking a pregnancy test and finding out she's pregnant. That's what causes her to go see Ellie, because she's her older sister, and she's seeking guidance from Ellie, because Ellie has 3 kids of her own. And that's where most of our action takes place, in this dilapidated apartment building is about to be condemned. And Nell Fisher plays Cassie. She is the youngest of the 3 children. I guess she's about 7, 8, or 9 in this film. She's very young. And this movie was produced by the trio, Rob Tappert, Sam Raimi, and the King, Bruce Campbell. Now, right in the beginning of this film, we are introduced to, well, we start at a cabin, an A-frame type cabin by this lake. And this guy, we see the shot going through the woods. We think it's a deadite. It's a nice misdirection. It's actually this guy that's one girl's boyfriend is on the dock, and he's flying a drone. I thought that was a cool misdirection because it makes it look like it's a deadite, the force coming through the woods, but it's not. Hence, it's a drone. And here, his girlfriend is not feeling well, and her friend comes down to talk to him about it, and he goes, I gave her something to knock her out because she's not feeling good. Hopefully she gets over it. So he's kind of a dick. And her friend goes back up to the cabin to check on her, and that's when shit hits the fan. And that's when we see our first gore moment, because she rips her hair off that you saw in the Red Band trailer and part of her skin on her scalp. And we get the awesome credit reveal with her floating above the lake, and the credits come up behind her. It's a great credit, probably the best I've seen in a while. And then we're in the meat of our story. We're introduced to Beth, and she's in the bathroom at this concert venue, and this is where we see her taking a pregnancy test. She finds out she's pregnant, and she's off to see her sister. And they're estranged a little bit. They don't have the closest of relationships, but Beth always counts on Ellie whenever she needs help. And she's going there for guidance here. And we get to see Ellie's situation with her 3 children, 2 teenagers, a boy, a girl, a teenager, and then a youngest girl. And her husband left them. So she's stuck with these 3 kids. She only has like a week or 2 to get out of this apartment building because they're condemning it. So she's a tattoo artist. So she's under a lot of pressure. But she remains calm, and you can tell she's a good mother. She loves her children. And Beth shows up, and she sends her 2 children out for pizza. Henrietta's Pizza on the pizza box. A little callback to part 2, because that was the deadite Henrietta was the main deadite in the basement in Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn. And yeah, so if you're not looking for it, you won't notice it. But when they come back and they're in the parking garage, an earthquake strikes, and they drop the box, and then you can see Henrietta's Pizza on it. And the sun goes down, this hole opens up, and we hear that they set it up where this building was built on top of an old bank. And he goes down, and he finds this old, the old vault, and he ends up finding some records and the book that you need for an Evil Dead. Now, it's not the same book from the Raimi trilogy, and it's not even the same book from the remake, but when he starts listening to the records, because he's kind of like fancies himself as a DJ, is like all this DJ equipment and turntables and that we get our Bruce Campbell cameo and a voice cameo on the records, and they explain how there's different versions of the Necronomicon, or the Book of the Dead, and this is one of them. And when the record player starts saying the words that starts the shit, he tries to turn it off, but it won't, and the mom gets possessed, and from there on out, it's a fucking bloodbath. It really is. They held nothing back here. I know everybody's comparing this to the 2013 remake, because that one's a very bloody and gory, hardcore horror film in its own right, and this one keeps up beautifully. I don't know if it's as gory, but like I said on my out of the theater reaction, it is paper thin close. I read that the director Lee Cronin said they used over 1,700 gallons of blood, fake blood, in this film. And I believe it, especially with the elevator scene, which we'll get to. So basically, the mom gets taken over, and Alyssa Sutherland knocks this role out of the park. Not only is she great as the mother figure, but when she turns, she is downright terrifying, and she fucks with her kids in the creepiest of ways. And two of the kids get taken over, the teenage son and the teenage daughter, in very graphic ways, and they have to dispatch of them. And then all three of them are coming after Beth and Cassie because they want Cassie. And there's some callbacks to the other Evil Dead films. The Deadites say "You'll be dead by dawn." They even chant it when they're in the parking garage part of it. And "I'll swallow your soul." Some of those lines come back. There's definitely callbacks to the other films. And even Beth in the garage, when she's handling the chainsaw, she goes, "Come get some." So famous Ash line, and they get it in here. There's other tenants in the apartment building, and they do something pretty cool. There's an old man that comes out after the earthquake, and you think he's going to be the stereotypical, like, old, craggy, bitchy, kind of dickhead old guy who's, like, doesn't like these young tenants. He's actually not. He's actually a very helpful, very caring dude, and I was glad they avoided those typical tropes that the old crotchety guy down the hallway. And even the other tenants, like there's this like young guy, probably early 20s. He's very helpful once they think Ellie's dead, and then when she comes back to life, she chews his eyeball out. So they throw the carnage candy around very liberally, like I said in my out of the theater reaction. They do not hold anything back here, and there's moments where you see, like, you don't see the act, you see the aftermath, and you think, oh, they're going to cut away from some stuff, and then they go for it all in. And I know they showed a lot in the trailer, but there's a lot that wasn't in the trailer that you get to see in this film. There's the elevator scene when Beth and Cassie are trying to get away because everybody else is dead, and they're all starting to come back to life, infected with the Deadites. And they're trying to go down the elevator because the fire escape is knocked out from the earthquake. And the elevator starts filling with blood. And it crashes down to the garage, and they come flying out with all this blood. Call back to The Shining, obviously. And then we get our final battle in the belly of the garage of the apartment building. And they end up, like, Ellie and her two teenage kids end up combining, like, something out of Lovecraft to create this monster, and they go after them, and then they end up having to put them through, Beth uses a chainsaw on them, and they put it through the wood chipper, and there's blood everywhere, and then Beth and KSC walk off. And then we get how the beginning started, because we see the girl who was possessed in the beginning of the film, lived in the same apartment building, comes out, and the force goes into her, hence what happened in the beginning. And that is basically Evil Dead Rise. What to like about this film? The acting is pretty damn good. Alyssa Sutherland's fantastic. Lily Sullivan's great as Beth. The two teenage actors are really good. The kids are great. And Nell Fisher is Cassie, that little girl. I mean, they put her through the ringer, but she is fantastic. And she holds her own here. And that was actually one of the aspects, because this is the first time we've had a child in the Evil Dead movies in danger. Usually it's teenagers or young adults. This is the first time we have somebody so young, and that made me feel uncomfortable for her. And it was a great plot device to make them family with her blood, so you can explain, like, they want to help each other, they care about each other, and they've set that up. So when things go bad, you could see how the little girl would be convinced that maybe her mother's feeling better because she wants that connection back with her mom. She doesn't really fully comprehend of what is going on. So you can forgive some of this dumb shit they do because you can kind of understand it because they're family and they love each other. And it's mother and daughter, and you can see why she would want her mother back. And hopefully she's back to mommy. And there's some really creepy scenes here, and most of them are due because of Alyssa Sutherland's performance. She is a rock star in this film. She's awesome. Everybody's good across the board, but she gets the more flashy role. She's good as the mother, and then when she turns into Deadite, she gives it her all, and definitely one of the more memorable Deadites. And we've had a few over the years, but she's definitely a very, very memorable one here. The gore gags, when it's practical, and most of it's practical, there are some moments of CGI, and you can tell a little bit when it is CGI, I will say that, but the practical effects are freaking spectacular. They did a great job here with this practical effects. There's a ton of blood thrown around here, a ton of gore gags here. Hats off to Lee Cronin for keeping it real, and he definitely tried to give us some Sam Raimi-esque shots. There's definitely shots you would think Sam Raimi directed this film, and I was there for it. I was eating it up. Any drawbacks? Because I really did like this film. There are moments, because this was meant to go to HBO Max. This was meant to be a streaming only movie. It got tested, and the testing scores were through the roof. So that's why Warner Brothers and New Line decided to give it a theatrical release. There are a few moments towards the end of the film where I could see the cracks in the budget for what they were trying to do, where it would tell me where this was meant for streaming at first. It's just a few little moments where the effects don't quite look right. They're not awful. It's not like sci-fi TV shit. But there's a few moments where you could tell they didn't quite have the money to pull that off completely. Didn't take me out of the movie. I just noticed it, and we went on with it. I was having such a good time with it. Although this isn't like Army of Darkness. There's no slapstick here. There's a few moments of like that Raimi-esque kind of humor that seeps in, but there's really not any time point in this movie where you get to relieve the tension with just a good hearty laugh because Ash is doing something silly or something silly happens. There's really none of that. There's just little moments where you can giggle or have a sigh of relief, but there's not many. This is a very intense, very suspenseful thrill ride of a horror film, and it's a hardcore horror film. As I said in the out of theater reaction, I'm having a hard time, and I've been thinking about it for 2 days since I saw it. When the last time I've seen a movie this freaking gory in the theaters? I know Halloween Kills was very gory, but this blows that out of the water. It might be since the last Evil Dead, 2013. I have not seen one in the theater this gory in quite some time. I was surprised they got a rated R, honestly. When we walked out of the theater, I said to my buddy Dale _A from the Bat and Spider podcast, whom I saw this with, I said, I don't know how they secured an R rating with this movie. I haven't seen anything quite this bloody and gory in quite some time in the theater. And he agreed with me, but hey, I'm glad we got it. So my nitpicks are minor here. I really had a good time with it. It's a really good hardcore horror film. And, you know, Evil Dead, man, with the 2013 remake and this one, they went for it, and you got to give them props. The Oldsmobile, the classic Sam Raimi's car, the 1973 Oldsmobile, is not in this movie. So I think this is the first, well, it wasn't technically in the remake either. They put a car that kind of looked like it there. But yeah, the classic is not here. Bruce Campbell, I said, has a cameo as a voice on the records that the son plays when he discovers the book and the records. And this is like kind of like a coming home for Evil Dead. New Line Cinema released the first Evil Dead in 1983 theatrically, and now they're releasing this one theatrically. And like I said, it did a little over $23 million, so I think it's safe to say we're probably going to see another sequel or another Evil Dead movie in a few years, which I'm all for. Yeah, overall, I had a great time with this movie. I highly recommend it. If you're an Evil Dead fan, I think you'll really enjoy it. If you're a horror fan, I think you'll really enjoy it. They give you everything you want from a hardcore, intense horror film, and they go for it, man. They absolutely go for it. I was really impressed with Lee Cronin's direction. He did a really nice job. At the end of the day, I'm sticking with my initial rating, a 9 out of 10 for Evil Dead Rise, 9 out of 10 for Evil Dead Rise. If you got the chance to see this yet, leave a comment down below, let me know. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video, we'd appreciate that. I'll be back soon with my Evil Dead franchise ranking video, but until next time, bye.